Good morning, everyone. Yeah. And welcome to the Monday, August 12th, 2024 meeting of the Electoral Area Services Committee. This is a committee of the regional board consisting of the three electoral areas A, B, and C. A little bit of housekeeping. Anyone looking for washrooms, they're just down the hall to your right. And in case there's an emergency, the mustering point is out on the tarmac in the front here. And as you can see, there are doors on both sides of the building, as well as the main entrance coming in. Hopefully we'll never have to use that. I guess we're going to start off with our recognition of traditional territories, and we are very, very, very privileged and to be meeting today on the official unceded territory of the Comox First Nation peoples. We're going to start off with a delegation. We have a delegation here from Hornby Village Center. Jim Garden, Michael McNamara, and is it Bill Haven? Yes, and Bill Haven are here to present. And without any further ado, we'll get you fellas to kick it off. I think we have a PowerPoint. So move your seat. Okay, move and second on receipt. And I'll give you the microphone. Just press the button and I'll press this button and away you go. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Good morning. I'm Jim Garten. Directors and staff, thank you so much for this opportunity to join with you and share our interest on what we're calling the Four Corners or the Village Center on Hornby Island. We will I think it's proper to acknowledge the fact that we are an ad hoc committee. As a group, and there's 5 of us, there's probably not a significant project or operation on Hornby that we haven't been involved with over the last 15 or 20 years. We are working very hard at establishing credibility because who are we? Michael will get into a little bit of that as to who we are, but we are very encouraged by the fact that by reaching out in the community, we are getting significant support, and it's building in a very timely way. So we are encouraged by that, and I think that our credibility within this group will be, I think, further established in knowing who we are. As Michael is able to complete his presentation. What are we looking for? We just want to facilitate, and we wish to have, at the end of the day, interest and in fact support through the CVRD for the project as we see it. And I won't get into that. I think probably I've introduced enough. Let's get down to what it's all about. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity. Michael.
Thank you, Jim. And thank you for inviting us in today and listening to what we have to present. Now, we're talking about Hornby Island, but I think we're talking about a reality that exists in many of the coastal communities. And that at this point in time, we're experiencing on Hornby a tremendous amount of development pressure. It's just both population and building new infrastructure. Our little group got together to think about planning in a good way, in a sensitive and island appropriate way. Development of the village center, de facto village center on Hornby, that would be in the yellow circle on the map. At the present time, there's a co-op store. There are shops and services around that store. There's a gas bar. There's a separate property across from the co-op that is also developing shops and services. There is an elder village that has sprung up around there. There's residential properties. And last but certainly not least is probably the crown jewel in BC Parks island parks, Tribune Bay Park. And BC Parks has just made a significant investment, buying up another 10 acres of private land and what was a private campsite. All of these things exist in a very tight little section on the island. This next slide is an aerial shot that shows what we're calling four corners. If you can see the cross blue lines, that is the major intersection on Hornby. And that's where all of these things that I was talking about takes place. If we have a little bit closer, you can see so north is up on the east side, both sides of the road is co-op property, shops and services. On the west side, again, the southwest side, shops and services. On the northwest side, there's an undeveloped property, an elder village, and more residential property, and everything to the east is the BC Park. I'm going to skip ahead to some photographs. The photograph on the top was taken in 1976. That's the original co-op store, a couple of cars out in front, gravel parking lot, no people. Sleepy little scene. The next photograph down, if you can read it from where you are, is taken from virtually the same location last week. A very charming little maze of shops and services, tons of tourists, local people. The gable of the co-op store is actually in the background. The scene has changed dramatically in the 50 years in between. The next photograph down shows a crosswalk with a few people, some shops in the background, the co-op store on the left side. The next photograph shows the same crosswalk with a significantly sized RV, pedestrians in the middle of the road, a couple of parked cars. The next one down shows the same area with a freight truck, more campers, more people. And the final photograph shows what the intersection looks like at ferry time. Virtually not 100% of ferry traffic goes through that intersection every hour, but close to it. Now, our point is that all of these changes have taken place and more are coming as we speak. Nothing has changed about the intersection. It's exactly the same as it was. Well, now it's paved and there's an extra stop sign, but it's the same deep ditches, wild verges. There's so there's this conflict between traffic, bicycles, pedestrians, strollers. It's reached a point where what is essentially the de facto village center of Hornby has reached a very dangerous situation. So when we were beginning to look at planning a charming village center, we realized that actually one of the biggest impediments to getting on with that planning it actually exists between the property lines in an area. I should say that the Hornby community has been over the years pretty good at providing social infrastructure. If there's a need, we often, and it's possible to fulfill it, we are often able to do it without any help from outside. In this case, because all of the congestion, the dangerous traffic situations between pedestrians, vehicles of all kinds, bicycles, everything, happens on highways land, it's going to take a different approach to plan active transportation infrastructure for that area and then to implement it. And that's really what we're here for. It's basically a cry for help. As Jim said, we're an informal group, but we have really good backing from the Hornby Ratepayers Association, the fire department. The list goes on right up to the Islands Trust. We have Hornby's in this odd situation in terms of governance. We have the Islands Trust, we have the regional district. We have talked with our Islands trustees. You might think that the Islands Trust would be a really good backer for this sort of planning. Turns out it's not. They are not in a position to take on that kind of planning. And that's why we're here today to talk to you guys, because I think that it's the appropriate partnership to look at this situation and then see what we could do to carry it forward. So thanks for hearing us today, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Oh, yeah, there'll be questions.
Good.
Thanks very much. That was great presentation. You gave us a good overview, and I think we've got the definitely feeling of what the underlying issue is. I'm going to feature Director Daniel Arbor right now on questions. Daniel?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Jim and Michael, and for the presentation and outlining the problem that needs attention and needs to be fixed at some point. And I have to say, listening to you two, I was a little bit mesmerized because I haven't seen the two of you often together, but between the two of you, you've indeed partaken in all the significant infrastructure projects on Hornby dating back to the 70s for Michael, and Room to Grow and the hall, everything. And with Jim leading the effort around the new fire hall and the Hornby Medical Clinic. So, I mean, you don't have a credibility problem at all, I believe. So, and you are trying to tackle an issue that is every summer is very difficult. And you're right, with all the investments and the new co-op and all these things happening, it's a good time to have that conversation. I have to admit that, from a CVRD perspective, we have invested heavily, say, in safety and active transportation on Denman Island with the Cross Island Trail. But we haven't really done a whole lot on Hornby on active transportation since Andrew Carmichael was on his little tractor cutting the trails in.
Yeah.
And then we had the Parks and Trail Committee. We've had a couple of projects, but not in the critical areas, right? So we've actually opened a couple of trails the last 4 years, but they're more on the periphery on Hornby. So if you think about the one that connects towards Seabreeze there from Central. And what I'm hearing here, what I realized when we were first in touch last month is it's probably time after 20 years of when we put in those trails in the critical area to have a second look at active transportation and safety for Hornby. And I do note that you did not put a solution. Like you didn't say, oh, we need a roundabout, or you didn't bring anything like concrete like that. You're just identifying the problem. Another change that's happened in the last 3 years is we used to have the Parks and Trails Committee that lived under HIRA, and we don't anymore.
Yeah.
So now we have a bit of an advisory committee, but it's basically onto the CVRD plate. So it's good to see community members come and highlight a key priority that we should probably work on. So we do have some good initiatives. I'm telling a long story here, but we have some good initiatives. Like this year, we are doing one around Cape Ladzo with the Ministry of Transportation, and they just started building last week, I think. And we have one in Royston, around Royston School, where we're partnering with Moti and the school district to improve safety and transportation around Royston School, which parents have been asking for like 40, 50 years. So I think we're in the space, is what I'm trying to say.
Good.
So it's just a question of maybe we don't have James, but we have Jake. So we'd have to look at some of the options to maybe start or a process. And that could lead to budget. In my opinion, we could potentially look at the Parks and Trails budget for Hornby to try to start initiating something. I'll pass it on to Jake to talk about some of the opportunities perhaps.
Mhm.
But after he talks, my question to you is there timing issues around the building of the co-op? Like, is this something that you think we should work on the next 2 or 3 years? You know, can we be patient, or do you think that there's a need to be more like aggressive on a timeline? Yeah, so between the two of you, I'll just pass it back through the chair.
But just to answer that last question, Daniel, it is critical now. And, you know, there's always a time lag. There's critical planning that needs to be done. So the sooner we can get going on it, the better.
Thanks.
Just to add to that, not get into the details, but there's been two independent reviews, one in June and one last week on the traffic on the Four Corners. Interesting, in 1 hour, there are 450 vehicles and 50 bicycles or pedestrians going through that crossing. That's one activity. That's almost 8 activities every minute. It is plugged. And the concern is these largely the safety. A year ago, there was a car on its side, literally on its side in the ditch. There's traffic areas where the bicycles just cannot get through the bicycle path. It's unsafe. It's very busy. And that's largely why we're here. And of course, I guess to sum it up again, what we would like is help and assistance through the CVRD to really help us and help direct the next steps.
Any other questions? Sorry. Oh, over to CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so the delegation has certainly spoke to the sort of multitude of challenges that are being faced with this intersection, and there's a variety of agencies involved in this effort for sure. Doug DeMarzo, our General Manager of Community Services here, as well as Mark Harrison, our Manager of Parks. So certainly from the active transportation side, we do have an appropriate service, which Director Arbor has mentioned, the Community Parks and Greenway Service. But this is, to my knowledge, would be a new initiative. Like Director Arbor said, we have a number that are ongoing right now. So something that we'd want to consider through work planning and budgeting. But in my opinion, if the committee directs staff to do a bit of investigation of this and come back with information, that would be a way to at least suss out what activities or what role we may play in this early stage.
I think Director Hardy has a question, Director.
Yeah, thanks. Question to staff regarding, thanks for the presentation, by the way, and I understand the concerns and issues and they are quite significant and something that needs to be carefully considered and closely considered. I guess the question I have for staff with regards to the issues that we're running into or the island is running into, I'm just wondering where the Ministry of Transportation falls within this and whether maybe that's the starting point is to again play an advocacy role with regards to getting Modi on board to try and address some of these issues. Thanks.
Thank you through the chair. I'll just invite Doug DeMarzo to provide a response to that question.
Good morning to the directors. I think this intersection obviously has evolved over time with a lot of business opportunities and everything that you guys have pointed out. Some of the challenges you've alluded to are definitely regards to volume of traffic and traffic safety. And the Ministry of Transportation would have to be a key partner in any conversations we had here. They do own the road right away. And without their willingness, I would say it'd be somewhat futile for us to go much farther beyond the parks and transportation piece that you see there with our active trail. So we'd really need them on board if we're really talking about any traffic calming scenarios or realignment of traffic. So that'd be a necessary first step. So I'm not sure if you've been involved with the Ministry of Transportation at all in this project to date yet, but understanding that relationship would be key.
No, this is really our first stop.
Yeah, good comments, Doug. So I guess Kellen Truant will hear from you at Moti. We'll try to introduce you to Kellen. He's the regional manager and is usually the first point of entry to any discussion of significant infrastructure, and he's right in town. So if your group is able to connect with him. For Doug, I think you have a good point. Like there are certain things we can do without Moti if we think in a more systemic manner, because I think one of the key issues we're facing, and it's true for a good couple of months of the year anyways, when the trails were put in 15, 20 years ago, they were not built, like we've got them separated from the road, but they're mostly, the reality is they are pedestrian trails. We do have bikes on them, but most of the bikes end up on the road. And then we end up with bikes on each side of the road, and we end up with cars trying to pass the bikes in blind corners, including in front of the future Beulah Creek housing site. So it's a complete mess. So even if Modi was not receptive, say, to put in a roundabout or whatever it is that the solution is, I think for us at CVRD, there would still be an opportunity to see if we have the right of way for those trails. And we're seeing places like Tofino, Euclid, people that have high volumes of tourists in the summer, they're putting the appropriate infrastructure and upgrading from dirt trail to more cycling friendly infrastructure. I'm talking a little bit without facts here, because I don't know how wide our right of way is. I don't know how feasible, what the cost would be. But what I'm saying is if we hit a complete closed door at Moti, which I don't think we will, I'm always an optimist, but I think that we could still have a conversation around the future of those trails and the volume and the type of users that we currently have, because it's vastly different from when we put them in even just 20 years ago. And I would also say that there's been requests in the community to extend out that, because that active transportation corridor right now is just between the co-op and the school. And there's been requests to go towards Seawright Road to have a better connection into Little Tribune. That's a little bit safer, because that's another point where you end up with lots of cars and the bikes and the pedestrians and the dogs. So yeah, so I guess that we never make decisions at the same meeting. We receive a delegation, but I think for today, if we can task Doug or through Jake and through our staff to do an initial scoping, we're well ahead of budget right now for next year. I don't see anything happening like for us to commit to anything in the short term, but by the time of budget, that would be a great piece I would like to see to see an investigation of this. And in the meantime, if you, I would encourage you to also try to even just a phone call or something with Kellen Truant at Moti to talk about basically the presentation you gave. Here's the problem we're trying to solve. We're open to solution. What does it look like at Moti? I think that would be really worthwhile.
Hello. Hey, I'm back on the air. Great. I think there's some other alternative avenues we might be able to explore as well. I know in my area, the Sackville-Merville Road intersection on 19A, it's 80 clicks going through there, and they've got a gas station that they can access the highway directly at 80 clicks coming around the bend. So we have met a couple of times, or probably 3 times over my tenure with the ministry, and they suggested that because it's a high crash area, I don't know how many claims you get on that intersection, but there's money available through ICBC to do intersection studies and design. So whether that's another avenue you might pursue as well. Because if there's a reason, if it affects them in their pocketbook with all the claims, then they tend to have money to help out. Working with Modi, like I say, that's probably the first step. At least make them aware of the issue. Now, my question, I don't see any other ones right now, but my question would be, being that they're doing upgrades on the commercial section there, would that be something that the merchants themselves, the owners, could take to Modi as well, saying that this is our intersection and we have these challenges. What can you do for us? I don't know how it works, but I know sometimes when they actually get money from the businesses to help improve the situation. But it's mostly the intersection, I think, that is the number one first off thing you have to address here because of the congestion. So first of all, I mean, Modi itself could certainly do a traffic study, put down some counts and see how many vehicles do move through there. It might be a surprise to them as well. So maybe that we can come back with some suggestions like that. But I do know that another alternative away and apart from the province itself is ICBC, because they tend to have a pool of funds for this kind of thing, especially if it affects them on their claims. And Director Harbour.
Yeah, thanks. I some good ideas, Dr. Grieve, but I look at the things we control here, and for myself, I'll have no difficulty trying to assign some of our own resources come budget time, I think, to resolve a longstanding problem. And in addition to ICBC, which is a good idea, and MOTI as well, I think we can probably loop in our MLA into this discussion. She's currently mostly focused on the ambulance and the doctor problem on Hornby. So she's been dealing with a lot of that, as well as the concerns around BC Parks from the community. But I think adding this topic on her plate, should she be reelected with a 4 years window, would be really good. This is slow moving, like as Dr. Grieve said, an active transportation with Modi, like we need to put in, is my experience.
Yep.
And it's a slow moving thing. But once you get the wheels going, it does eventually happen. So thank you for your efforts and for bringing that issue forward. And I'll be definitely committed to work with you in the months ahead to try to find a path. Great.
Any other comments from directors? Questions? I just have one, and that's try to add voices to the choir. Get as many people on side, especially the business communities and like you say, emergency services, and that's really big. So the more voices we have, the more people that are on board, then it does make an impact. So yeah, I'd like to thank you guys for coming over, and it's been incredibly interesting, and certainly we're affected by your enthusiasm and your long history of activism on the island is much appreciated. One more?
Thank you very much.
Yes, final word. I want to thank everyone very much for taking the time to listen to us and hear us. We look forward to working together. Thank you again.
Yeah.
This is working again too. So yeah, we'll excuse you from the table and carry on with the meeting. First thing, I guess, is we have a motion on receipt. Did anybody oppose receipt? Then that carries. Director Arbor, do you want to make a motion at this point, or do you want to do it under new business? That's direction to staff to scope it. Okay. Put it down on your cuff so remember. Write it on your palm. All right, unfinished business. Delegation follow-up for the Denman Island Land Trust Association. Staff will provide a verbal update. Over to staff. We'll share. We're gonna do the old computer trick. We're gonna unplug everything and plug it back in. Hold on.
Your mic's not working?
Success. How about you, acting CEO?
Test, here I am. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, as you noted at the July 15th meeting, the committee received a delegation from the Denman Community Land Trust. They were seeking $10,000 to support an environmental assessment of a piece of property that's currently privately owned that is proposed to be donated to the trust for an affordable housing project. I think there was an intention by the committee to seek a report from staff on their request, although a resolution was not passed at the meeting. So we put forward the CEO recommendation here to complete that, should that be the will of the committee.
Okay, so we do have the recommendation before us. If somebody wants to move it or speak to it, we'll move it, then speak to it. Well, we're not receiving, so how can we speak to it? Just a technicality, shouldn't we move it first? Oh, okay, over to, I can't. Can you punch him in? I can't do it.
Sorry.
There you go, Director Arbor.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I might, and Jake is probably looped into that. There's been further correspondence from the Denman community linked to this item. And I know James was looped in, maybe Jake wasn't. Okay, so this is just from last week. There's a further request based on feedback from BC Housing in the province that we may need to consider allocating more resources on an ongoing basis to some of the housing opportunities on Denman. There's currently two. There's Denman Green, which the committee has been presented on and is well aware of. And at this same meeting, we learned about the basically the transportation site for God, is it Main Road or it's MCON or I forget MCON. And in light of this, I would just like to make sure that we cover that latest request and recommendation. So I would propose that staff prepare a report regarding options pertaining to the request for $10,000, and also to investigate the latest request from last week, which we received on email for potentially $100,000 a year to support the housing developments on Hornby and on Denman Island. I'll leave it at that. I did put Hornby in there because I think Hornby will come down the pipe later on, but I'll leave it out of this motion. So yeah, I would propose that. And can speak more about it if the directors are curious about some of the background at this point, but I figured that it would come back out in the staff report should it be prepared.
So we need to add and further that on that one.
Mr. Chair, while Lisa's just preparing that,
There you
perhaps
go.
I can just confirm that is, I'm understanding it's a request from the Denman Housing Association to, as Director Arbor said, provide a $100,000 contribution annually for the purposes of affordable housing. We have reached out to the association just to seek a bit more clarity on kind of their intentions for that proposal and expect that would come back before the committee. But if this resolution passes, we of course bring that information back through this report. At this point, I believe it's just been moved.
We've got the motion on the screen. Does that satisfy the director? He's already moved it. And we need a second, or at least to speak to it, Director Hardy.
Yeah, thanks. I was just gonna ask, is this Hornby Island or Denman Island? Yeah, there's a little confusion there for some. Thanks. So if I could share to the staff, I guess I'm still kind of, I guess, need more details regarding the request for $100,000 a year support housing developments on Denman Island. Again, was the delegation that was here asking for $100,000 a year to be directed towards the service, or, you know, how did this particular item come up? Thanks.
I refer to the CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, so the delegation specifically was just speaking to the $10,000 request. What Director Arbor is alluding to is to correspondence that I believe came to him and staff for $100,000 contribution for the Denman Housing Association. That has not came before through a delegation or through other reports or otherwise. So that's where we'd be looking to provide information to that, perhaps also supplemented by a delegation if desired by that group to help speak to that detail. So yeah, no information, I guess. We have very little information at this point.
So should that second, or does that read then that the Denman Highland Housing Association from them?
It hasn't been seconded, Chair.
Hasn't been seconded yet, so can we change that? Because it's not specific, it's not the Denman Island Economic, this is the Denman Island Economic Development Service, but the requests coming from the Housing Association, correct? Just to be clear on it. And the service will be Denman Island Economic Development Service would be the vehicle, correct?
Well, Mr. Chair, I think it's worth noting that that's part of the staff board, at least on the $10,000, is to identify what are the options available, and that would probably apply equally to the $100,000 request as well around what are the options for that contribution. Although yes, the original contribution of $100,000 was from the Economic Development Service for Denman.
I can provide more background before, because it's not seconded. Yeah. So I guess the new information since Denman Island presented with their requests, which I'm glad to see a follow-up today, is they've had further correspondence with CMHC and BC Housing. And the reality we're facing in rural areas is that we are at a true disadvantage in terms of the prioritizing of affordable housing projects. And I am concerned that the senior governments are now almost putting us into a pay-to-play position. I don't really want to put 100,000, but the feedback that they're getting, they were rejected. Their project, Denman Green, was rejected by a few months ago, and they're trying to obviously complete the project. And the feedback they're getting is pay-to-play can help pop the project higher up the list of priorities. This is from people I trust. This is not first-hand information from me, but by this motion, what I'm trying to do is to, their deadline for the next CMHC application is coming up in September or December, October. And I know they want to do a delegation, but while we're already investigating this, I would like staff to have wider berth to dig into some of the issues that the society and the EgDev service are facing around this. So that they can still meet their application deadline with some clearer support from this committee one way or the other. I'm not saying I'll be in favor of 100 grand, but I want to understand what's happening in the senior government feedback to us and what that would mean if we needed to step up to the plate at that much higher level than a $10,000 contribution.
Over to you.
And Mr. Chair, these two items could be split apart, just given that they are related to two different groups. Yeah, I leave that for the committee's consideration.
That sounds like a cleaner process. So we'll split them up and vote on the first half. You okay, Director?
Yeah, to me, it would make sense to split them up. If you're okay with that. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so you're down a seconder on both of them, and Danielle's a mover. Okay, so on the first directive there, anybody opposed? That carries. So rather than and further, we just say that as well. Get rid of the and further because it's not, we're not furthering the first one. So there we go. That's acceptable by the committee. Okay, so on the second motion, anybody opposed? That also carries. Thank you. All righty, so we got rise and report from a closed meeting agreement with Fanny Bay Senior Society, and I turn it over to our CIO for comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this is a rise and report from the previous closed session respecting the endorsement of a use and occupancy agreement with the Fanny Bay Senior Society. This agreement follows the regional district's acquisition of the property at 418 Ships Point Road, and the agreement provides for the continuation of the hall as a community facility under the CVRD. So no direction or decisions are required at this point, just a public release of this information.
Okay, so there's no action required. And Director Arbor?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just a quick thanks to staff and Doug in particular for his work, because Doug worked on this and he didn't get to have cake at the opening ceremony in July 16th, and Trish was there, but I really want to show appreciation. Staff worked really quickly from the moment the problem was identified, and it took a few months, but I know the community is super thrilled of having saved that property and for the seniors to still have it. So big kudos to staff for their work on this.
Hopefully we get an invite to the Christmas party then. Okay, so that's, as I say, there's no action required. Onto the resolution status report for receipt. Anybody want to move receipt? I have one comment, and we always talk about this, is we're up to 6 pages now. And we're going to have to turn our minds to whittling it down. I think we made a point, I think, when we first got elected in this term, that we were going to try to pare it back. We got work going back to 2019 on there. So, you know, either it's really going to happen or it's not. Either way, we can't tie up staff on a whole bunch of stuff that may or may not be material at this point in time. Any comment on that, Director Arbor?
Yeah, thanks. I think there was a point a few years ago where we had a lot of items on there, and some of them, it looked like they didn't have a path, and I think we made decisions around them. The current report I'm happy with, because I didn't get elected to do nothing. And I think that the resolutions report, a lot of the projects that are on there are projects that both my communities and myself deeply care about. So I actually feel comfortable with the list right now. I don't see anything that's latent or unnecessary on the list at current time, but that could change. So we have to keep an eye out.
So a motion to receive? Nod from Richard, second by Daniel. Anybody opposed? That carries. Into reports, Advisory Planning Commission minutes. The following minutes are for receipt: Area B Advisory Planning and Area C Advisory Planning. Moved and seconded on both. Any discussion either? Seeing none, anyone opposed? That carries. Number 2, Electoral Area C rezoning application, RZ4C22, the remainder of lot 21 along Oyster River Way. Moved and seconded on receipt for the report. And over to CEO for introductions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I will invite Tom True, our Manager of Planning Services, and Jody McLean, to also provide an introduction to this work. Thank you.
There you go. Welcome, Jody.
Thank you to the CEO, to the directors. So last year, this committee considered an application to rezone this 3.5 hectare lot in the Saratoga Miracle Beach area of Black Creek on the screen there, for the purposes of enabling its subdivision into 0.4 hectare lots or 1 acre lots. This would increase that area's development potential, its density from 2 houses maximum to up to a maximum potential of 16 dwellings over 8 lots. This committee directed staff to proceed and issue external referrals. Responses to those referrals are included in the package there and addressed in this report, and a bylaw was drafted. Also during this time, the Local Government Act, which governs zoning, its rules and its processes, that was changed based on new housing legislation. And so we have had to adjust this application procedure accordingly, unexpectedly, mid-process. Relevant to this application, 2 significant changes. First, while the board directed staff to negotiate community amenity contributions, which were intended to help offset impacts of increased density on a larger receiving community, the legislative changes removed this ability, and so staff and the applicant ceased such actions. Now the application must be only considered as it was proposed, and its impacts deemed either acceptable or not acceptable. Second, about the process. So normally, previously, this procedure would see that the board give first and second reading to the bylaw indicating its acceptance of the proposal, and then issue public notification, and then host a public hearing based on that bylaw, and then consider a third reading based on all that accumulated information. But on this particular file here, the new legislation says that we cannot do a public hearing for it, and it moves all public notification requirements to happen before first reading. So just the consideration of first reading requires this. And so we've done that. We've mailed notices to the neighbors and advertised in the last 2 newspapers. We've received, I know, at least 1 written submission. There may be more that's come in since then. That directly addresses a particular proposal. But then this meeting is open to the public, and the agent for the applicant, Kip Keelock, is in attendance. Public submissions may be accepted up until third reading is granted by the regional board. But for now, staff is recommending that the draft bylaw be given first and second reading, with the condition that the rainwater management plan be registered as a covenant as it delivers recommendations that need to be maintained in the long term to accommodate this proposed density. Although the proposal as a whole is consistent with those official community plan direction to increase density in the settlement node, connecting to the water system and it being accommodated by rural on-site servicing. Staff is also recommending third reading, which will be ending public input. And Mr. Chair, later adoption could be granted at a future meeting upon confirmation the rainwater management plan is registered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does the proponent have anything to say? Want to get up and? Thank you very much. So
And Mr. Chair, if I can just clarify that there is 1 piece of correspondence included with the staff board, as Jody mentioned, I believe, and then there is 2 items I understand that we've added to the addendum for receipt following receipt of the report.
yeah, we have a couple of late coming correspondence in here. It's 2, right?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, so it looks like all the checky boxes are ticked off and got approval from all the appropriate jurisdictions. I want to say it was rushed through, that's for sure. Lots of work. The rainwater management is always the issue in that part of the country. We have very, very high water table and not much grade. So looks like that was an address as well. So any questions from directors? Director Harbour?
Yeah, thanks. So if this got passed today, this would head to public hearing then, is that, no? Sorry, no public hearing because, right. Wow, sorry, I'm just adjusting to the new reality. Um. hmm. Yeah, I mean, the project is fine. There's a part of me that, of course, there's the local area plan happening and I mean, this is my own views that I'm sharing. Apparently, we won't get public comments on that. So this could end up being an underutilization of the land. Like for me, when I look at the site and right next to the school, depending on where the local area plan goes, to me, this could be like further density. There could be a BC housing involved. Like to me, the site is really centrally located in that area. And my comments were going to say, okay, well, if we go to public hearing, we'll probably hear about the local area plan and why don't we just pause some more? But it's been 3 years. So I won't have any kind of public input to support what I'm saying, I guess. That's frustrating. The province just keeps, and then they've removed our ability to negotiate amenity packages. So I'm going to talk to our MLA. Like, I'm not really happy with a lot of the stuff coming down from the province and our inability to, I mean, it streamlines everything, but in this particular case, I believe at the end of the local area plan, it might actually say that if we figure out septic / sewage and water, we may or may not, but if we did, then there was that commitment, you know, this, if we're trying to create a complete community in that area, that property would probably be primed for more density. That's all hypothetical. So I guess I need to park all of my thoughts and just make a decision on the matter. And yeah, I won't be able to vote against this because it has been discussed. It is within the current plans that we have for the area. Staff's report indicates it, as the chair says, it checks our current boxes. I wish we were a year or two later on when the local area plan is done to make a decision on this one, because land is finite. And once we set this in place, you know, that's what will exist there. So back to you, Chair. It's really your area, so I'm happy for your comments and wisdom on this one.
And Director Hardy?
Thanks, Chair. Again, just reviewing some of the comments that came in from various folks up in the Saratoga area. One issue that has come up is regarding water. So I'm just kind of curious with regards to whether the properties being developed have their own wells or are they tapping into Black Creek Oyster River water system. Thanks.
Over to Jody.
Yeah, they'd be serviced by the Black Creek Oyster Bay Water Service.
Well, I think that this particular project has been in the hopper a long time. The lots are big enough for on-site septic. They pay their DCCs for the water hookup that is going to be sorely needed because we have to do some infrastructure upgrades over the next 20 years up there. It's going to be quite expensive. I think it's in keeping with the form and character of the area. Now, when you start talking about future development, and especially density, that entails proper sewer services. And as you probably know, Director, it's not an easy task when you're in the electoral areas to do that sort of thing. So I do think that this is going to be state of the art. And like I say, there's a long road ahead for any other future development up there. And I'm certainly, very pleased we're going ahead with the local area plan. But this was undertaken, in good faith, and it seems to be something that's a fit. It's not going to be as dense as some of the urban areas, but I really don't think that the electoral areas are ever going to be, that walkable community thing unless they actually incorporate. I don't see any other way of getting to full services, which is what we need if we're going to do that kind of thing. So until we have Saratoga, the city of Saratoga Beach, there's probably ways we can work around, but if there is, it's way off in the future because any big development up there has already gone through 3 iterations. And as you remember, this committee turned it down on the last one because of rainwater management. So if they've got the rainwater management piece licked, I think that's the big piece. You read all the referrals, it's I think it's ready to go. So that's my opinion. Director Hardy?
Yeah, thanks. And just a question for staff regarding, again, water. And does the Black Creek Oyster River water system, does it have the capacity to accommodate the development of these 8 properties? I guess moving forward here. Thanks.
I'll turn it over to Mark on that one. Mark Retton?
Yeah, thanks through the CEO and through the chair. Yes, the Black Creek Oyster Bay water system has the capacity. We've done a lot of research on that system in the last couple of years, quite a bit of study work, which is all presented, of course, to the Black Creek Oyster Bay Water Committee. But at that committee, they've received that work. There is capacity for this development and then also for larger developments at Saratoga Beach Estates, if those ever came to be.
Thank you very much. So seeing no further questions at this point, we're on receipt. Anyone opposed to receipt? Then that carries. And is a recommendation attached? Oh, I'm sorry, we got to do the addendum. So a motion to receive the addendum. And we have some hard copy here of the late entries. So on receipt of the addendum, anyone opposed? Then that carries. And then now the regular receipt. We got receipt.
Did it all in one. Okay.
Yeah, we did it all at once. So that brings us up to the recommendation itself. Anybody want to move it? Director?
I'll move it.
Okay. I'll second it. Any further discussion on the recommendation? Seeing none, anyone opposed? And that carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, staff, for all your work on this. I know it's an uphill battle. Okay, so number 3, development permit for Cascadia Wood Tech industrial forming character on 4988 Island Highway South for receipt. Move a second on receipt and back over to CAO for introductions.
Thank you. I'll introduce Tanchu and Alberic Marginet, hopefully I pronounced that right, to introduce this report. Thank you.
Through the chair to this, through the CAO to the chair and the committee members, staff have received a commercial industrial form and character development permit for an application for property at 4988 Island Highway South for the development of a 1,083.6 square meter industrial building. The subject property is 2.21 hectares or 5.46 acres in size, is zoned industrial light and designated as the rural settlement area in the official community plan and regional growth strategy. The property is developed with 1 industrial building, 1 partially collapsed industrial building, and an accessory dwelling unit. The applicant proposes to demolish and replace the partially collapsed building with a new industrial structure to support their growing wood fabrication business. This business fabricates value-added wood products for prefabricated construction, and wood processing is a principal use in the industrial light zone. Form and character development permits exist to ensure that adequate buffers exist with surrounding land uses and that the character and development is attractive and coordinated with the surrounding neighborhood. In support of this application, the applicant has provided architectural plans which propose a vertically articulated natural wood tone finish siding for the proposed industrial building. This can be found in Schedule A of Appendix A. Parking and storage plans, which can be found in Schedule A of Appendix A. Landscaping and screening plans, which propose an Excelsa cedar hedge along Island Highway South, which can be found in Schedule B of Appendix A. A rainwater management plan, which can be found in Schedule C of Appendix A, and an erosion and sediment control plan, which can be found in Schedule D of Appendix A. The proposed development meets the development permit area guidelines, and details on how these plans satisfy those guidelines are provided in the staff report. Based on these considerations, staff supports approval of the commercial industrial form and character development permit. The Advisory Planning Commission for Electoral Area A reviewed this application at their July 8th meeting and recommended for approval. Michael Leckie is in attendance representing the applicant Surler Werlen of Cascadia Wood Tech. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does the applicant want to get up and say anything? Yeah. Just press the little button thingy.
Great.
There you
Okay. Chair and directors, thank you very much for having me here today. And the only thing that I would add to this application is just a little bit of background about the applicant. Cascadian Wood Tech have been operating on this site since 2015. As was described in the application summary, they had an existing manufacturing facility that collapsed due to snow load on the roof. I believe it was 2 years ago. So they've been operating in a compromised capacity, and unfortunately have been having to turn down work. In the meantime, their business is growing. They're doing fantastic work in terms of value-added timber manufacturing, and they within the last year had the opportunity to purchase the land. They were formerly operating under a lease arrangement, and are really just looking forward to expanding their operation. Thank you. Actually, a couple other things that I will add. They do have financing in place for the project, as well as government grant funding for equipment. They are essentially ready for construction from a technical standpoint, and are currently over in Switzerland researching equipment options for the facility. Thank you.
So just out of curiosity, do they make paralams or what are they making?
They're not actually making the engineered wood products. They're taking the wood products, they're tooling and preparing the packages. So they're producing, they're buying glue lams from a mill such as Razorwood. Then they're taking those glue lams, machining the connections, putting the packages together, and then shipping out the timber package as a whole.
Thank you. Any questions, Director Robert?
Yeah, thanks. I would like to add, obviously the staff report is not going to write that, but it was enthusiastically supported by the area AAPC would be my qualitative add. I think it's really good to see in the industrial / commercial sites. We don't have a ton of them in the rural areas, and when there's a company that is going about it in the right way and trying to be a good neighbor and as well be innovative in their own field, it's really great for the areas. And I would also highlight that there were some questions from the APC around some of the design, and it was great to hear the intent to potentially engage with the First Nation on potential design elements that could acknowledge the place in the site. And I think there was also intent around the cultural heritage permits and such. So Really good to see, really good project, and I agree with my peers in Area A that we're wholeheartedly supportive of this. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments from directors? Seeing none, we are on receipt. Anyone opposed to receipt? And that carries. And his recommendation attached. Move a second on the recommendations. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none. Anyone opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. Moving along to my favorite subject, fire service automatic aid agreement report for receipt from July 30th.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll invite Bruce Green, Regional Fire Chief, to introduce this report.
Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you through the CEO to the chair and the directors. You are aware that we had a fire service review done last year, and finding 10 of that fire service review recommended that the areas that are distant from a fire hall, we look at getting automatic aid agreements in place. So just for clarification, automatic aid agreement means that if there's a fire call in that area, 2 fire departments we pay each out at the same time, so we don't have to request mutual aid. We do have, that has been endorsed, a mutual aid agreement that we're there to, we can ask for mutual aid. This is just automatically doing that through at the dispatch level. And then in a fire services bylaw in 695, in order to enter into an automatic aid agreement, we need board endorsement, hence why we're here today. And we're looking at the endorsement for 3 different areas. The first one is an automatic aid agreement in the Courtney Fire Protection District area from Parker Road down to Solom School or Smith Road. And that will be Oyster River and Merville entering into an agreement with Courtney to provide tender services because there's no hydrants in that area. And we're hoping that through doing that, we may be able to get tanker certification for a good area in there. So that's the long-term plan there. The other one is for a part of the greater Merville Fire Protection area, which is from Coleman Road east down to Seal Bay Park. We're going to look for sign one with the town of Comox to send an engine out to any structure fire in that area to help Oyster River and Merville. And the final one is in the Bates Huban Fire Protection area. There again, there's no hydrants in that area. Town of Comox is providing that service for us. They're requesting that we send a tender for any structure fire to help support them. With that, I ask for any questions.
That sounds perfect. That's great. Good coverage. Any questions from the directors? I don't see any, but I'd just like to extend my congratulations for the fire chiefs on working so collaboratively. I mean, we are well served in the Comox Valley with our volunteers fire department, and it's what's your motto about being a professional fire service manned by volunteers?
On the side of our truck, it has professionally staffed by volunteers.
Yeah, we're very proud of that. Thank you. Okay, so on the report itself, we're on receipt. Anybody opposed? That carries. Do you want to move the recommendations separately? He wants to move them separately.
Yeah.
Pardon? 3 is different voting. Oh, yeah, because yeah, okay, so I see that. So we can do 1 and 2 together. How's that? Okay, move 1 and 2. Director, you want to speak? No, you're good. Okay, so on 1 and 2, anyone opposed? That carries. And on 3, which is all. We'll second on 3. More discussion. Anyone opposed to recommendation 3? Absolutely, that carries. Thank you, Mr. Green. Fireworks bylaw, lighting authority, signing authority updates, lighting authority. So report for receipt. Second on receipt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Amanda Yasinski, our Senior Manager of Building and Bylaw Services or Compliance, is here to introduce this report.
So from fire to fireworks. Amanda, welcome.
Good morning, through the CEO to the chair. So this bylaw is to bring forward suggested amendments for the signing authority that allows certain staff members and officers of the regional district to review and issue fireworks permits when either a corporation or individual comes to the regional district to have a fireworks permit provided. Currently in the bylaw, it is through the officer's bylaw, which narrows it down to CAO, CFO, general manager of corporate services, and myself. So during busy times, quite often there's been instances where info center staff have had a hard time locating an officer as outlined in the bylaw and have had to call our CAO or another officer out of a meeting or where they're otherwise engaged. I try to always be present to sign those, but sometimes it doesn't work out. So this was through an internal review, working with info center staff, staff through corporate services, and myself on streamlining this and having a bit more thorough review of that permit when they are being signed. Feeling that bylaw staff, knowing where we have had complaints before, how the enforcement works on those permits, would be equipped to sign those and are more readily available. So the bylaw outlines those changes, allowing those staff to have the ability to sign. It also includes general manager of planning and development services, which oversees bylaw, is keeping with my position as well, and then including bylaw enforcement staff and our bylaw coordinator. So those are the changes. You may recall under separate cover, I believe last month, I brought forward amendments to the bylaw compliance delegation bylaw, and that was to set us up for the ability for these changes as well. They both had to be amended for it to align.
Okay, so any questions regarding the fireworks? I don't see any. So this has been a while coming. So we're at the point now where we can make it happen. So no further questions. We'll vote on receipt report. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. And the recommendation attached. With a second on the recommendation. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Anyone opposed? And that carries. Thanks very much, Amanda. Septic regulatory program engagement results and next steps. Report for receipt. Move a second on receipt. And we have Vince.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yes, and Derry Monteith, our manager of liquid waste planning, and Vince Van Tongeren, our policy and sustainability analyst, is here to introduce the report.
Great, thank you, Jake. Good morning, directors. Yeah, this report is an update on the septic regulatory program that's been proposed. I've got a few slides for some background and description of where we're at. So septic systems in BC are regulated under the sewage system regulation. And one of the stipulations of this regulation is that property owners are responsible for maintaining their septic systems. However, a common criticism of this regulation since it was enacted back in 2005 is there's a lack of enforcement to confirm that these maintenance activities are occurring. In 2018, the CVRD started a septic education program. One of the purposes of this program is to help inform residents of their obligations under the septic systems regulation. And in 2020, we released a study on program options to help encourage proper maintenance. This included description of 3 program options, including mandatory pump out, mandatory inspection, and mandatory inspection and maintenance. One consideration in this study was it's important to avoid a one-size-fits-all approach.
when looking at septic regulations. And on that basis, the program that was proposed in an October 2023 report would see inspection requirements in higher risk areas alongside mandatory pump outs in all areas. With limited precedent for regional district septic regulations in BC, there are several legal considerations. And last year, the legal implications of a potential CBRD septic regulatory program were investigated. In summary, septic regulations would fall into an area of concurrent authority with the province, protection of public health. As such, this is considered an area of specified regulatory authority, which means that electoral area director consent would not be an option for participating area approval, resulting in a requirement for a referendum or alternate approval process. Also, for regional districts, Local Government Act public health powers do not include the authority to impose requirements, unlike for municipalities where the community charter does provide this authority. In discussion with Ministry of Municipal Affairs staff, gaining this authority would be achieved through an order and council request to the province of BC. Public engagement is a required component of this OIC request. This was completed earlier this spring and consisted of an online engagement page, a recorded webinar, and a public open house. This round of consultation was the first substantive effort to inform electoral area residents of the proposed program. As seen in the graphic in this slide, there was a pretty high level of engagement. That said, the majority of comments received were opposed to the program, citing concerns with cost pressures, government overreach, and the perceived unfair burden a program would place on responsible property owners. There were a few supportive comments provided, some from residents who've had direct experience with a failing septic system in their neighborhood. In looking at the program timeline previously provided, the objective was to have an OIC request to the province this summer to be ready for an assent vote or AAP next year. However, given the results of the public consultation and the lack of support expressed for the proposed program, the prospects for a positive result from a referendum or AAP appear to be pretty slim. That said, the need for protection of environmental and public health remains, particularly in areas around Bain Sound, and support letters have been provided from Island Health, the Ministry of Health, and an industry group, Wacoma, BC. For provincial context, the only other program in BC is in the Capital Regional District, and this was established through a liquid waste management plan. Further to that, the Sewer Extension South LWMP Addendum Stage 1-2 report that was submitted to the province earlier this year includes language supporting a septic regulatory program within the plan area to be considered for future phased neighborhoods and earlier phase areas if sewer servicing doesn't proceed as planned. To implement a regulatory program through the LWMP, an order and a council request would still be required. So that brings us to the recommendation in the report. First off, to not proceed with a region-wide program in the CVRD electoral areas, and to continue consideration of a septic regulatory program in a portion of electoral area A through the LWMP that's currently underway. To submit an order and council request during stage 3 of the LWMP, and to provide response letters to Island Health, Ministry of Health, and Wacoma, BC, outlining this direction and the challenges with implementation of a regional district septic regulatory program. With that, happy to answer any questions.
We have some questions. Dr. Hardy?
Yeah, thanks. I'm just kind of curious, that last bullet with regards to response letters to Island Health, Ministry of Health, and WCA OWMA-BC. I guess I can read without glasses. With that being said, I'm just kind of wondering where federal jurisdictions or authorities fall in line, and whether or not response letters to those organizations needs to be included as well. And I ask this question because of Bain Sound and the shellfish aquaculture industry that quite often gets impacted septic systems. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I think our response letters are provided to those who submitted support letters for the proposed program. And septic regulations is falls as a provincial responsibility through the septic systems regulation. But that said, there is pretty clear recognition that the impacts do tread into federal territory.
Further?
So again, going back to the federal authorities, was there no documentation sent to federal authorities to request for a response letter back from them, or were they provided any of that information? The reason again I ask is I have sat in on different meetings with federal authorities regarding water quality in Bain Sound and the finger pointing that they do at the province and at local government. So I guess maybe I can be a little bit clearer with regards to my comment. And I guess it's whether or not information has been provided to Canadian or federal agencies regarding what's the report and the forums that were held, and then whether or not if information was sent to them and they didn't respond back. I would be curious as to that. Thanks.
Certainly, thank you through the chair. So we have engaged with Environment Canada, just keeping them up to date on kind of the program that had been proposed and some of the work done to date. So I think we certainly could provide them with a response on the decision that's made today.
So, Director, you would be referring to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, correct?
As a follow-up, again, understanding the various jurisdictions, it's Environment Canada that I think deals with water quality and provides recommendations to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, whether or not an area gets opened or closed, or. So I think that's what Derry was kind of getting at there.
And they do regular sampling, don't they? So are we privy to that sampling, or is it federal proprietary information?
I guess that would be a good question for staff regarding whether or not the information, the data that gets collected by Environment Canada gets passed along to staff or not. I'm not
Nice,
sure.
it was.
But if it's not, I think, again, getting back to Environment Canada's website, I think that information can be obtained from staff can obtain that information from Environment Canada if asked.
Good to know. And Director Barber.
Yeah, thanks. That's I'm finding I'm in a rough stretch in Area A in terms of the news that are coming down. As we know, Area A is under a ton of cost pressures, and there's a lot of uncertainty around the future of some of those projects. And in this particular project, I was heartened that Area B and C were in the same boat as I. I feel like I'm now entering a desert, and Area B and C are peeling off from this particular initiative. And Area A would be left with more regulations and more costs. I do understand the risk to Bain Sound, and I've been a big supporter of proactively, but trying to find solutions, but it's just piling on an Area A right now. We got the result of the solid waste management, especially for Union Bay in particular. We're starting to see on the horizon the potential outcomes of the solid waste management plan and potentially the introduction of new measures. We have sewage, the big pipe, and now we would have this septic regulation to other residents as well. New fire hall, water, we've seen the numbers. So I do feel pretty lonely in representing the area, because there is a need to do something, but it feels like everybody's dropping off. The province, the feds are not really providing funding. to address some of those issues outside of the sewage pipe. They have provided, the province has stepped up in a big way for the sewage, but sorry, I'm starting to rant. So the option is really to keep this in, and then of course we took it in the teeth from the electorate. It's a time where family is under pressure, and it sounds like at the open houses we really took it in the teeth in terms of the position to this particular initiative. Yet the staff report says keep going in area A. Good luck. So and the LWMP process basically, I just want some comments from staff. I know I've raised this in the context of South Sewer, but what you're suggesting is this would be added as an activity to our current LWMP process for the South area. The staff report does not talk about whether Hornby would get peeled off of that because some of the neighborhoods in Hornby, so that there's a lack of information I have today because probably staff after that consultation kind of tried to salvage what they could and saw a line with the LWMP for Area A, but does that include Ships Point? Is it just Union Bay? So I have a few questions on that front. And second, maybe that's corporate, but where is my decision point? So say that I approve, well, it's a committee and the committee can outrule me, but say that it did move to the LWMP as the single Area A rep. Do I have an opportunity to stop to that aspect if it leaves the station today? I.e. when it comes to financial authorization for the service and et cetera, I guess it falls to the whole board, but does it require my signature at some point? And if I don't provide that signature, then the initiative fails. And I want to know that, otherwise we can defer, because for me, there's, I understand there's regional interest, but it's also my job to represent the residents, especially of the Union Bay, and without an answer to the question, those questions, I have a hard time saying yes today.
Yeah, I can speak to the first part of that question regarding the LWMP. There is mention of the potential for septic regulations within the plan area. And as you stated, that does go as far south as Union Bay. It includes the areas under consideration for future connection to sewer servicing. So yeah, it does not include areas such as Ships Point or anywhere on Denman or Hornby Island. So as part of that, that would be considered through the LWMP and through the committees that support the LWMP process, and then further public engagement with more details on what this would look like in Area A, including what costs would be for those areas that would be subject to septic regulations.
Yeah. Thanks you for that answer. Sadly, it does not reassure me a lot, because as I'm processing this, what we'd be saying to residents is, if we don't have the South Sewer project, if that project doesn't happen, and there's currently risks associated with that one right now, then you're going to get that septic regulation coming, right? But that's 900 homes. And around Bain Sound, in my estimate, we never crunched the number, there's probably 2,000 or 3,000 homes, including in RDN and Deep Bay, right? And so what we would be saying to Union Bay and Royston is tough luck no matter what, and everybody else gets a pass around the Sound, when we've already identified, like Ships Point's, areas of risk. So this proposal today does not hang together for me. I think I would vote to not send it to the LWMP process. And we can have some discussion around the province. They have no issues stepping on local government in all kinds of places right now. So if they want to bring enforcement to septic regulation that includes Deep Bay and Ships Point and Denman and Union Bay and Royston, they can do it. Doesn't have to be at our cost. Because this solution, I don't know if you see what I mean, but it just penalizes Royston and Union Bay residents no matter what. And everybody else gets a free pass. I don't like that. I represent all 5 communities. Thanks.
Mark Rutten?
Yeah, thanks. Through the CEO and through the chair, thanks, Director Arbor, for the feedback. I just wouldn't mind making one point is that through our public consultation with all areas, A, B, and C, we really tried to highlight the fact that this was not an expensive service. Like, it was not a big burden for residents. The proposed service has a very low cost to operate as a service. The mandatory pump outs are already things that should be happening. They're on a 5-year schedule. People should already be doing that work. It adds no cost to what they should already be doing. And then the inspections are something that may not be happening in those high risk areas, but also should be happening. So, we tried to present it that way. Obviously, the feedback speaks for itself. People did not necessarily agree. They felt that it was either going to increase costs or it was just overreach, and they were already doing that good work, and we didn't need to be involved. What we brought forward was, we're trying to bring forward recommendations that we know will create a successful outcome, and based on the feedback we got, the reality is that in an electoral assent process like an AAP or a referendum, this would probably not be successful. So the LWMP is the way to go, for that area. So I just wanted to kind of provide that. I know it's in the report, you probably read it, but we don't see it as a burdensome, like an expensive service. It should already be work that is being done by the residents for their systems. And Bain Sound is an area of focus, and the LWMP does present that opportunity. So thank you.
Dr. Arbor?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks all around because we're, with what I'm saying today, we're not solving anything from an environmental perspective or for the risk to shellfish and otherwise, right? So, but I hate solutions that make clear winners and clear losers, even though it's just $150 that the service might cost per home. When we know that Royston and Union Bay are the most pressured financially of all communities, probably in the regional district in terms of tax increases, that's just layering on. Oh, and by the way, like, we're not going to have septic, even though as staff said it should be everywhere. We'll just single them out and everybody gets a pass. That's just not right. So I don't feel good about this decision to say, let's not kick into the LWMP because it solves nothing. But maybe what it tells us is maybe today we decide to proceed with the entire region and then fail, right? We've already done all the work, and the work is good. Like, for the residents, we've identified all the high-risk areas where we have water system and the septic is leaking into their water. Like, we've done a ton of good work, right? But I don't know. I cannot go with a recommendation that just singles out Royston and Union Bay, and basically that will be seen by the community as you're in support of South Sewer, or we do this and you're the only one that gets it. It's not right. Thanks. That's it for me. We could defer as well if the chair wants.
Okay, let me add them. So we have comments from 113 different people. That works out to 0.00047% of the population. Hardly a cross section. It's a bit like asking people to eat their vegetables. I don't want to eat my vegetables. Well, we have, it's not like these are possible areas. These are known areas. I think about my jurisdiction, when you look at the failing septics up at Saratoga Miracle Beach, way back in 2016, Payne Engineering identified half of all the test wells failed to meet or exceed provincial regulations around effluent. So that's only one area. You got Crodo Beach, which I'm sure you don't even want to test up there. Kilmarnock, all that stuff, you know, as well as anything along the foreshore. So we have definitely identified where the problem area is. And we have what we call liquid waste management, or what do you call rural, what's our service, liquid waste rules, liquid waste service or whatever. That has nothing to do with liquid waste, apparently. It's just about rainwater mostly. It's a huge budget. I always question, where's all that money go? I think maybe we had this thing wrong to begin with. We're talking about sticks instead of carrots. You know, I'm thinking if we did have a way, and I've been told, no, we can't do this under the service, the way it's set up. But if we had some kind of incentive, like if you come in with your bill from the yellow truck or any of the septics people saying you had your tank pumped, the regional district, much like our toilet rebate, will give you a check for half that amount or something to incentivize it. That kind of thing might work rather than the other way around. But I'm with Daniel. I mean, this isn't going to go away. It's just because we don't petition the province. I mean, I have a dim view of the problems to begin with, because when we had identified issues around Bain Sound due to Cumberland's effluent from their sewage lagoon, we were down in Victoria meeting with the minister, and I was basically told, unless somebody gets sick and dies, we're not going to do anything. And they were already out of compliance for like 20 years or something at that point. So, you know, I don't have a lot of faith in the province stepping up to the plate here. So I don't know what we're going to do. You know, it's a big issue up like in my area as well. So I don't see it being area centric at all. I think it is it's a district wide, rural wide issue. And most people want to do the right thing. They really do. They just don't like being told what to do. And we see that, and we're going to see a lot more of that in the years to come. So I would think, I think deferral is the best thing here, just to kick it down the road a little bit. We've got some good information. As far as going for authority to impose requirements during an election year, really, folks? And let's look at the real politics here. It's not going to happen. So, you know, we got the information. We got a vague idea of what we can do. I think more cajoling the public into compliance is the way to go. But I want confirmation. My question is that why can't we run a rebate program for septic pump outs? And of course, when the septic guy comes, I mean, I've had him come and he's entering into conversation with them, and he knows exactly where all the failing septics are. It's part of his job. He could name them all, you know. So, you know, it's. I think that if that would be a step in the right direction, at least, you know, raise the awareness out there, because because we do have failing septics along the foreshore, and until somebody gets sick, we don't expect Island Health to do anything. So that's my little rant. Director Arbor is going to take the weight off me now.
Yeah, I'd just like to correct that. The province did step up for Cumberland. They started fining them, number one, for being out of compliance. And then they help with grants as well, I believe. And the feds did as well for them to update their lagoon system, which is work that's currently underway. So it's just in our situation with dispersed population and no centralized system, you know, there are no provincial or federal help. And at the minimum, yeah, I think I'll vote to, well, actually, we need to think about whether deferral, well, we could defer for a meeting just so we can think more on it. That's fine, but I think the outcome is probably going to be the same in terms of the vote. And maybe between now and then, I'll try to think like how, at the minimum, we can pass all of our package for Bain Sound to the province and say, here's all the information we've gathered, here's where all the risks are. And it's for your consideration, you know, how to assist and help an area mitigate the negative environmental outcomes that we currently have. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you go to vote, I'll vote against. I mean, unless the directors will have a change of mind and say let's proceed. I think we can tell that this is not supported by by residents at this time. So I think we could shut it all down today or think some more for 2 weeks and come back. Up to my colleagues here. I'm good either way.
Mr. Chair, just if I could add that sounds like there is still some lingering questions that remain, whether it's advocacy around encouraging the province or other agencies to step in, whether it's looking at service changes to enable a different approach, perhaps, like you said,
Yes.
the carrot as opposed to stick. So certainly if the committee wants to defer and if we're able to kind of have a sense of what kind of additional information is needed, we can certainly come back to it and help to advance this a little further, perhaps.
To be clear, 113 people is not a cross section. You know, it's minuscule. And like I say, it's like saying eat your vegetables. I think if you plant the seed, if you make it so people are aware, work on the education piece. And if we can change the regulations around funding or some kind of rebate or some kind of incentive program, then I think that's the way forward. Because, you know, there's too much valuable information here. Obviously, with Daniel's area, he is facing enormous costs because of all the initiatives going on down there. So, not so much so in Saratoga Miracle Beach, but it's the next one on the list, right? So just be clear, if I may, and I'll ask our acting CAO, can we then theoretically, without starting a new service, repurpose our liquid waste management service to allow for that kind of thing? Because I was told we couldn't, so maybe we could put that on the list as something to look into.
That'd be something staff would want to look into.
Okay, thank you. And Director Harper.
Yeah, it just dawned on me, like, through that effort as well. Maybe the board doesn't, but I have outstanding commitments on Hornby around the Allen's Trust and short-term vacation rentals. And one of the things that we talked about was that bringing in septic regulation would help both for the health of existing residents, because everybody's got a well and we've got like E. coli and all that stuff in it. Like it's a health issue. And then for vacation rental, they've actually been in favor of the septic regulatory measure because they see something that improves. So they get dropped. So for further information, if we do a deferral, well, I guess I'll vote for the deferral now, is maybe a check-in with Hornby Island to see what's the consequence if we drop out of this. Where else? Ships Point will be okay. Yeah, this is not really fun today. Yeah, that'd be my further information. For the rest, I think is just to reflect on what else could we do. I mean, we could kickstart. I don't know. I don't know. It's like maybe we just give up and we just say to the province, we give up. It's back in your court.
At least testing and monitoring. Director Hardy.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, a question for staff. Again, going back to federal agencies and provincial agencies, whether or not a presentation from Environment Canada with regards to water quality data within Bean Sound would be prudent or not. And then whether or not the BC Center for Disease Control, having them maybe give a presentation as well with regards to noroviral issues from contamination of oysters in Bean Sound. I'm just wondering if maybe those two organizations could come to the committee and give presentations that would help us regarding the decision that we need to make with regards to the current recommendation. Thanks.
Thank you. And to Darian, Vince, I'm not sure that if those presentations have come to the LWMP committee at all, or if there's been any data to them or not. I put that to you, but certainly no objection from my perspective of having such presentations requested if that's the will of the committee.
Director Harper.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Hardy. Now you made me think about another entire set of groups that will be upset. And I've been involved with the Bainstown Eco Forum for the last 6 years. And there's definitely consensus around that entire table that status quo is not an option. And Canada struggles with our traceability and CSSP and all the rest of that in regards to the shellfish sector. But if you look south of the border and their regime, Dr. Hardy would be familiar with that. It's definitely not local government that provided the solution for how the shellfish sector is organized down there is by statute from the states and the federal, what are they called? The federal food agency, forget their name. They have a big stick. And no, well, they're the ones that looked after all the environmental standards for farms and shellfish and otherwise. And Canada lags behind in a big way, which is why Dr. Hardy keeps bringing it back to the table. Like we're, in fact, our own, if they come here, what you'll hear from the federal servants is that we're basically a sieve and our industry is at huge risk because we're not doing a good job on traceability and on E. coli management and the rest of that. So, but why should we wear this as local government if this is an industry that is important to the entire province? Then maybe it needs to be a provincial federal response.
It's the biggest in Western Canada. Director Hardy.
Yeah, just one more question for staff, just for clarity from my perspective. I'm just wondering if, again, and further that septic regulatory measures continue to be considered in a portion of electoral area A through the liquid waste management plan currently underway for the sewage extension south project. And does the liquid waste management plan fall under the sewage committee, or does that fall under electoral area services committee?
Yeah. So through the chair, so the South Addendum, which was recently completed, which was the stage 1, 2 of the plan, fell under this committee acting as kind of the steering committee for that plan. However, for stage 3 of the plan, we're now kind of combining processes with the Comox Valley Sewage Service. So the Sewage Commission would then act as the kind of overarching decision-making authority for that portion of the plan.
Director Daniel.
So I'll restate from 20 minutes ago, the information that would be important, especially in light of what Derry said, is I need some reassurance that, not reassurance, I need knowledge about where my intervention points are. Because if by chance this committee passed this, which I don't think is going to happen today, but and that gets to the switch commission and I find out later on that the train has left the station and I can't stop the train, I need to know that prior to this committee making any decision for sure. And without that knowledge, then I kind of want to vote it down today, the entire thing. But if we defer, that would be definitely information I would need to understand where my legal authority lies in that process.
So we're getting some direction here. I would entertain a motion after receipt to defer this to, if we actually knew precisely what we wanted to hear, we could actually refer it back to staff for a rework. I think you heard enough to, so we'll just defer it. I'm not sure about September because we're going to have a lot on our plate. Can we defer it back to October meeting?
Certainly could, Mr. Chair. You could defer this matter pending additional information from staff around. I've taken notes here on a number of the items. I don't think we can necessarily list them all out in the resolution, but certainly we've got some information that we can bring back to you.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way forward at this point. I mean, we all have our thoughts on this and just let it percolate for a while and get some more information from the staff. As I said, I think the carrot's going to work better than the stick. Education works better than, than imposing requirements at this point. So on receipt, anyone opposed? Then that carries, and a motion, please, to. Oh,
My suggestion would be to pending further information from staff.
there we go. That sounds logical to me. Okay, so seconded by Director Hardy. Anyone opposed? And that carries. I'd like to call a short recess. Everybody stretch their legs a little bit. We've been at her for how long now? A couple hours. So just 10 minutes. Let me know. Welcome back. I now declare this Electoral Area Services Committee meeting back to order. And we're on item number 7, which is the rural community grant applications report for receipt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Doug DeMarzo, our General Manager of Community Services, is here to present this report.
Welcome, Doug.
Thank you. And through to the directors, this is the second round of intakes that we're seeing this year for the rural community grant applications. And the staff report, it outlines that you have a total grant funding remaining of 73,000 between your 5 electoral area rural community grant kind of processes there. For this one, we have 2 additional considerations, one being the Comox Valley Farmers Institute, which is to secure a purchase of a new manure lime spreader combination as part of their co-op equipment program that they've been running for many years. They are expecting that a piece of equipment will cost about $60,000. And from that, their request amount is $10,000. The second one we have is the Bread of Life food share, which you've supported in the past. They're continuing at a food bank type facility out in Merville area, assisting over 2,400 clients. With this broad-reaching service actually reaches residents from Campbell River to Qualicum, so it's quite substantial, including supporting some school programs. And they're looking for $25,000 in support of the food bank to bring some commercial freezers up to date, as well as other facility improvements and just general support of their food program. So that's kind of the 2 asks you have in front of you. If there's any remaining funds, the grant will remain available for any unallocated funds up until November if any other community organizations want to come forth for this fiscal year. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we'll move into our grant analysis discussions, in which we track your comments and amounts and move forth from that.
So how are we going to apportion this? Do we have are we going to discuss how we're apportioning the funds here?
Yes, typical to the same processes we've done in the past, we suggest you discuss that. So just for conclusion, I can say that Part A, Main Sound, has $3,700 remaining. Electoral Area B has $1,700. Electoral Area C has $39,000. Denman Island has $7,000 and Hornby Island has $5,000 for a total of $73,000. And in front of you, you have an ask of $35,000.
Director?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just thought I'd take myself out of the running.
I think so.
I'm basically out on fumes, and as you know, I always prefer a very area-specific organization. And while I respect and like the work that these 2 organizations are with those two factors, I'll take a pass for today. Thank you.
I suggest a bottle drive and a bake sale. Okay. So Director Hardy, you wish to throw in a little bit to the food bank? I can. So we're at what? We're at $35,000. I want to hold back a little bit. I can kick in the 30 if you want to kick in the 5. Or whatever you think. I want to keep a little bit for emergencies. You never know what might arise. Director.
So might be easier to talk about the Comox Valley Farmers Institute application first. So it sounds like Area A is out with regard to making any contributions towards any of the applicants. I'm assuming that. So I think the Comox Valley Farmers Institute is $10,000 request. So, maybe, Area B could contribute about $4,000 towards the Farmers Institute.
Okay. And I'll stump up the rest, 6,000 from area C.
So where does that leave Area B now?
It leaves you with 13,720 and area C with about 6,000, so it'll be 33,000. So
Okay, Area B will contribute maybe $4,000 towards
Bread of Life, the second one you're
Yeah.
now contemplating?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bread of Life.
$4,000, and that leaves me with 21,000. I'm okay with that. So that settles that piece. And back over to Doug. You got some further information for us?
Yeah, those discussions will be reflected and finance will report back out to those organizations of the amount that they've gotten on their grants. And if other rural community grant applications come forward, there is some remaining funds in each of your areas, which could be considered again in November. This one was brought forward a little early as there was some need expressed by both organizations for a quicker resolution. So we appreciate that.
So, Mr. Chair, I think we're still on receipt, if I'm not mistaken. So following confirmation receipt, then a resolution just could get passed to confirm this allocation, which we've noted here.
Report.
So move on the report and second on the report, and anybody opposed to receiving a report? That carries. And the recommendation, the proportion as we discussed, with the grants that we discussed for the totals that we discussed. Unless we want to discuss it.
No, we'll just get back.
Hit the button.
Yeah, staff have noted the amounts and
That leaves me with how
allocations.
much now? What's area C got left in the kitty? 12,000? Okay, just in case there's emergencies. There always seems to be emergencies in my 19 years of experience. The unknown unknowns, right? Okay. So anybody opposed? Did we get a mover seconder? I saw an eyebrow raise over there. Director,
I'll move the resolution,
okay,
the new resolution.
and seconded by Director for Area A. So on recommendation as described, anybody opposed? And that carries. Okay, so are we on to water restriction dashboard? Very interesting. Receipt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Mike Hirschmiller and Zoe Berkey, I believe, are both here on joining us via Zoom to speak to this report.
Hi, Mike.
Good morning, or I guess good early afternoon, directors. Just have a couple updates here. This report is kind of a snapshot on where we're at, and yeah, so I can just go through it kind of table by table and just let you see for yourselves, and then ask any questions once I get through it. So as you know, you see now this was kind of developed as to try and give you the most up-to-date information. Just like I said, a snapshot, up-to-date information. Things are changing quite regularly with regards to consumption and whatnot. East Coast Vancouver Island moved into level 4 drought rating, and that was on July 18th, just so earlier in July. They changed that rating, and now that means about 18 of 32 regions in the province are now either in stage 3 or 4, and that so that's over 50% of the province is in level 3 or 4 drought. What that means for us, each system, as we've said, is kind of has different requirements, different needs, and also different availability of water. And we're doing okay as a snapshot on general for the whole system. Comox Lake is about a meter higher right now than it was last year at this time. But usage has been, well, I mean, we had a fairly wet June, so you'll see in the June report the usage is down from last year. Last year we had a hot June. We did have 52 million liters has been our highest day so far this year. There's 51,920 cubic meters listed there. And that matches our highest day last year. We had a 52 million liter day in the beginning of July last year. So looking good in the Comox Valley system for water availability right now. Allen Lake for the Royston system, similar. Allen Lake was quite a bit lower last year at this time. It was about 30% higher right now. But Cumberland, they blend well water with their lake water as well. So I don't know the details of how they've been doing that, but right now it appears that Allen Lake's doing pretty good. Other than that, the Royston consumption has been very similar to last year as well. Black Creek, you can see the biggest drop there is the Oyster River flow has gone down in the last month from 5, just over 5 cubic meters a second to kind of just under 2, 1.5. And it's down to about, I just checked this morning before this meeting, and it's down to about a 1.3 right now. So we draw from the river right now primarily, but we have the ability to blend it with our wells as well. So once we start noticing an issue with drawing from the river, we will move back to our wells and kind of blend the water together. But other than that, usage is very similar. Union Bay, we're doing Union Bay. Yeah, Union Bay is about, it's the lake, Landing Lake is about 20 centimeters higher than it was last year at this time. We did just have to move to stage 2 for operational reasons. We were just using more water than we were able to create. That Union Bay treatment plant uses about, or it can flow at about 15 cubic meters, 15 liters a second. And we were maxing that out, and we were finding it was tough to keep up. Our reservoir was dropping a bit. So moving to stage 2 has helped. So we're able to at least have those days where there's the non-sprinkler days are allowing us to get that reservoir back up to max, and then we can feed the distribution system. And then Graham Lake, we don't have a lot of historical data on Graham Lake, so we're still building that data set, of course, but we are going over and visual inspections of the lake weekly, as well as now we can very clearly see what's happening in the treatment facility from our facility here. And basically we can tell when we start seeing more flows, that treatment plant needs a little bit more attention. So as we were going over there in the wintertime, we were going over there 1 visit a week. We're heading over there now 3. We were going, most of July we were going twice a week, and now we're heading over 3 days a week. And that's basically just to do backwashes, because it's a manual backwash process on the filters. But we're kind of seeing the same issues in the Graham Lake system as the Union Bay system, where we're pretty much, we're getting very close to maxing out our treatment facilities. So anyway, as you know, that system's under review. We're designing the new treatment technology, but as we sit right now, we're looking pretty good. I'd say we're looking better than last year for water availability. And I'm available for any questions if you have them.
Well, Mike, I love having this dashboard. It's really great. So some questions from directors. Director Harper?
Yeah, thanks. This is just not quite outside the scope of your report, but I know you'll have the answer likely. So for Graham Lake, I heard you say that we're now going 3 times over, and of course, over the last 50 years, they always had residents look after the water system, hired staff. So when you say 3 times a week, is that going to be consequential to our operating budget for the year now that we use staff from here that has to travel over to Denman with the time and with the cost?
I mean, yes, to answer simply, the more we visit the island, the more costly it is for staff time for sure. With the upgrades that we've made with the infrastructure inside the facility, we are able to operate remotely, and so that does help. There are certain things though that we can't do remotely, and that's primarily it's the backwashing of the filters. So the more water that goes through those filters, through that granular media filtration, we have to go backwash it. So that's really where we kind of why the added trips are. In the new facility, that will be automated for sure. But you know, we've looked at the annual, we've budgeted for the annual for staff time, and we expected more trips in the summertime. So, you know, we have budgeted for this, but yeah, that primarily the more we go over there, the more it costs for staff time. Yes.
Thanks. And I guess for the dashboard itself, it's in, you know, we finally have that. I think it's a great tool, and I think this coming few days it's supposed to rain a lot, so it's interesting. We commissioned that dashboard at the time of drought last year and high concern, and of course the first year we put it into place, it's a wetter year and with fewer concerns. So, but it'll be really great to see when we start getting some trends in 5 or 10 years from now. Thanks.
Yeah.
So I don't see any other questions. And this is only for receipt. Did we call receipt on this? We did. A person second on receipt. So anybody opposed to receipt? Seeing none, that carries. And new business, I believe Director Arbor had some new business. The one you were going to write on your cuff, remember, so you wouldn't forget it. Good job, we're here.
So in regards to the Hornby delegation, I would just, it's a very simple resolution, just that staff be in touch with the group. I've since had a quick touch base with Dr. Marzo, and I understand that we may have a related report in September in regards to other efforts around the bus and such. But I would just ask that for now, the committee commits to have a follow-up from staff with the group and to investigate the potential for improvements to the Hornby Village Center's transportation infrastructure.
So Lisa's going to condense that to one sentence, right? So it's moved, and I'll second it. Sounds good to me. Richard's mid-bite, so. We're just going to have it up.
Do you want to have?
Pardon?
Did you want to have it up?
Yeah, there you go. Is that succinct enough?
Just change that to transportation. Transportation infrastructure.
So the director says improvements to transportation infrastructure. That's the motion. First and seconded. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. And that brings us to a motion to adjourn to the in-camera portion. It was second, and we are adjourning to in-camera. We'd like to thank the audience for coming in, the gallery,